Every day, you and I get bombarded with negative news. And just like our bodies becomes what we eat, our minds become the information that we consume. If you want to stay positive, it's so important that you also listen to stories that inspires you and uplifts you. In this podcast, we interview world-leading experts dedicated to solving the world's most pressing problems. And if you stick around, I promise you will not only be as informed as if you watch the news, you will feel uplifted, inspired, and have more positive energy in your life. Welcome to Great.com Talks with. Hi and welcome. Today Great.com talks with Isis Labroyère, who works for the investigation department for L214.com. And if you haven't heard of them before, they are a French animal rights organization that focus on all the kinds of animals that ends up on our plates. And if you're new here into this podcast, go into YouTube or your podcast app and press subscribe, because today we're going to talk about how we're going to make the world better for all animals. And I learned before this interview that L214 is a law that says that animals are sensitive beings that should be treated accordingly to their needs. And I really like that law. And I hope together we can make sure that law is being enforced. Isis, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with Great today.
Hey, thank you for having me.
So how would you describe L214 to someone that is not familiar with the organization or the work that you do?
Well, we are only based in France, and we are an animal rights, as you said, focusing on the animals that end up in our plates. So we are revealing mostly what's going on in factory farms and slaughterhouses. That's our main target, to show the French people how the meat and dairy products and eggs are being produced.
So how many people do you think are aware of all this pain and atrocities that are happening in these slaughterhouses? Are people generally unaware, or is the main thing you do just make them more conscious that this is happening?
Well, I think some years ago, most of people didn't know. But thanks to the work, of course, our work, but work also from other organizations, and thanks also to the press and some politics and so on, now we can say there is an awareness on the problematic for the major part of people. But still, it's really hard because we don't really want to see. So even if in some way we know, we have seen some images, we had a really good media covering our work, but still people don't really want to face the reality, because it's really hard. Of course, it's a really cruel and violent reality that nobody wants to see. And also because it would lead to changes in our habits, especially food habits. So that's much more convenient to not see the problematics.
Yeah. Yeah, and that gotta be a big challenge for you guys, that you have all these investigations, maybe whistleblowers, you have these images, you know the reality, but to make people look at it. So what are your strategies to make people look? Is it kind of to show the images, or is it to give them alternatives, maybe plant-based options? What is your strategy?
Well, all options are good. We are really oriented on solutions. So anything that can have a positive effect on the animals, we are trying. And nobody has a perfect magic recipe. So we are trying many things. And of course, showing reality is for us the base of everything. Because without the images from the reality, you can't have a debate. You can't think about the topic if you don't know the facts. So for us, it's really important to take those images from slaughterhouses, from intensive farms, to open the public debate in France. So now it's happening. Finally, France was not really early doing it. We were quite late in Europe for this public debate, but now we have it also on the political level. But of course, it's not enough. So for people, I think most of people, they have seen some images and they know there is a problem, but then of course it's to the industry that the responsibility goes. The industry has to change the practices because people still need to eat. So it has to become possible to eat differently. So we also work with the industries to make them change their practices. So it can be to reduce the animal cruelty in the production of animal products, but it's also to offer more plant-based alternatives. So whether it's in supermarkets, but also in restaurants or school and universities and so on. And yeah, that's something really important because you can't just denounce and then not offer a solution. So it goes always together.
I like that approach that you're solution oriented and you're working with the industry instead of against it. So what do you think the industry needs then to change? Is it kind of pressure from the people? Is it political will? Is it changes in governments? Is it just like knowledge and support to make less cruel animal practices more profitable? Like where does the changes needs to happen?
Well, a bit of all of what you said.
It's the same question again, but
yeah.
So maybe where are you guys the most focused on?
We really try to go on all levels. I mean, the political level, it's really crucial. Without the law changing, we can't have any proper solution in the long run. So it's really important, but that's also the most complicated. The politics, they are really scared actually to move on those subjects. It's really hard for them because they face huge industries, especially the meat industry, and they are quite scared to go against interests that involve a lot of money. So it's complicated for them to be brave in a way, even though they know that French people in majority they want change on those topics, but they don't follow as fast as society on the topic. That's the problem. Then the industry in between, well, they listen every side and they go where the money can be made. So, and that's good. I mean, if the public wants to eat differently, then they will produce what we want. They don't have fear of change. On the opposite, they are quite open to developing new markets and so on. So it's really good. But yeah, we have at a certain point, we need to have the politics also coming in the game and saying, okay, that's a limit. We can't go further in the cruelty. That's something we have to end and so on. But for the moment, it's really hard to have that, even though most of people, they expect a lot from politics, but that's the same on many other issues, unfortunately, not only on animals, on animal cruelty.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's so interesting, the law you mentioned, that animals are sensitive beings and should be treated according to their needs. Because I think most of us can agree that the extreme forms of animal cruelty shouldn't exist. But going from not being extremely evil to animals to actually supporting their needs, that's a pretty big gap. Like, how would you envision a food industry where animals' needs were taken into account? What would that look like?
Well, we have two sides, how to say. For L214, we see things in two time, sorry for my English.
Timelines.
We think as long as we will consider animals being ingredients and aliments, things we can eat, there will be cruelty on them. It's not possible to profit from their bodies and to respect them. That doesn't work together. But that's a long-term project to stop using animals completely in the food industry. But that would be the best solution, of course. It's maybe radical for some people, but that's a solution that's really secure, that animals have a place on Earth to live with us and not being abused by us. But in the shorter run, of course, we need to make some changes. And this law, L214 article, saying that we need to treat animals according to their needs, well, that would be a first good step. But for the moment, at least in France, and I think in many other countries, unfortunately, it's a symbolic declaration. It doesn't have any real impact because we still see many animals being uncaged for life, and that's absolutely not okay with their needs. Of course, whether it's mother pigs in crates or hens laying hens in cages or separating the calves from the mothers, and all of that dysfunctioning is not respecting animals. So, and even the simple fact of killing them, which is the finality of all the process, we can't kill with respect an animal because animal wants to live and they care about their own lives. So they will always resist, and there will always be a fight as long as we want to make them our food. So that's why we have a work that is focusing now on diminishing the cruelty, trying to make it less a problem. But still, as long as we don't take into consideration also this philosophical debate that is whether we should use or not animals, there will be other problematics for animals.
Yeah, you really have to distance yourself from the animal to be able to participate in that kind of cruelty. Like all those examples you mentioned, you have to like perceive them as less valuable than humans. And I think so many people, myself included, I am so distanced to my food. I eat meat sometimes, and then I buy it in the supermarket. I try to buy ecological, but still it's a product in a package. If I were to see that cow and interact with it, I think it would be so different.
Or if you had to take the knives yourself.
Got it.
Like for many people.
And I'm not sure I could do that. So I'm choosing to be a hypocrite.
But it's
for convenience.
Honestly, most of us we are, and that's not really completely our fault. If you look at publicities, all the meat industry is trying to do is to separate the product from the animals in our minds. All the publicities is really designed for making us forget that there is suffering behind this product. And it's making us believe we need it, we need to buy this meat and we want it. And we are not really free. We can't make a free choice as long as we don't have also the reality of what's going on. But today, if you want to visit a slaughterhouse, it's impossible. I don't know in Sweden or in other countries. In France, and I think it's the same in most of countries, you can't ask as a consumer to visit a slaughterhouse, especially the slaughtering line when it's working, because the meat industry really knows that it's not good for their business if people see that. So as long as the consumers are in the dark, of course, they will keep buying those products. That's normal. It can't change if we don't have the tools and the facts in our hands to make a wiser choice.
I appreciate that L214 is then trying to bridge that gap between the darkness and understanding the reality of what is going on and interacting more respectfully with animals. So what do you think then the future looks like? Let's pick France as a specific example. What do you hope will happen in France in the next 10, maybe more years?
Well, I think now we are we pushed what we can do to animals so far. We can't really go further. yeah, there is always worse and worse. But in terms of genetics, what we made with chickens, broiler chickens growing so fast, they can't even stand in their legs after 20 days, or all the genetic developments and all the way we also raise them with so many individuals packed in one building. There is not so much room for more industrial development in this area, I think. So, and there is a big expectation from the society to change, to reverse a little bit this movement of always abusing more and more and making more and more profit out of each animals. So I think it will positively change, I hope so, but also for other reasons. And I expect a lot from that. We see the global warming, it's from a part linked with intensive farming. Deforestation is for a big part for raising beef, cattle, and also soya to feed animals all around the world. So there are so many problematics linked with intensive farming, and not only the cruelty on animals, also the health, like epidemic crisis can happen anytime when you put so many animals together with, you give them a lot of antibiotics, antibiotics, I don't know how it's in English, to prevent diseases. And therefore, the health of the humans is also impacted because the antibiotics will become resistant to them. So there are so many problematics now, health, ecological, of course, the animal cruelty, that it can only change in a positive way. I think the awareness has never been so precise on those subjects than nowadays. And I don't see how it could go even more into something negative for the animals and for the planet. But maybe I'm too idealistic, I don't know. But I think now, yeah, we can only make progress. I mean, we've been so far in the bad, so to say, bad way of doing things. Now we can only improve ourselves and learn from those mistakes. And a good sign is that the industry is really willing to change. That's a good sign also, because that will allow people to eat differently, and that will allow things to change with the support of industry.
Let's cross our fingers and really hope that you're right. So we're coming towards the end of this interview, and imagine that someone is listening to this. They want to make some positive change in their own lives, or maybe influence others to make the world less cruel for animals. What can they do? What are some important steps?
Well, first is to inform yourself. That's the main point. In my point of view, the main things to do. Do not stay in the dark with beliefs of what is agriculture today, because probably when you think about agriculture, if you don't make your own research, you will see peaceful animals outside in the fields, because that's the images that has been really put into our minds, a big part of it by the publicities. So first thing is look at reality, really. And I know it's hard, it's not pleasant, you don't have to do it many times, but watch a little bit of what it is really going on into intensive farms and slaughterhouses. And then ask yourself, is it fair? Is it the relationship I want to have with animals? Maybe meet the animals, go to a sanctuary, for instance, and meet them too, because it's difficult to respect beings that we don't know. So that could be also something good to do. And then, of course, if you can, then first reduce maybe your meat consumption. And in the best case, just stop eating animals. But more important, I think, today is really to get aware of the problematic and to speak about it. That's not a taboo. I mean, we can disagree on the way things are done, even if we are not completely okay with our own habits. You know, it's not on one side, people not eating meat, on the other side, people still eating meat. I mean, we are all in the same movement for most of population. We don't want to harm animals. And that's important. That's the most important thing, to realize that we don't want this society that is so cruel to so many billions of animals every year, and that we want to progress all together. So it's asking our politics to take action. It's of course also consumer choices, but not only. And we have to speak about that and to make the public debate as live as possible.
Beautiful. So first become aware, then change yourself, then speak to others about it.
Yes.
We are coming towards the end. Isis, thank you so much for speaking to Great.com today about this, which I think is one of the most important issues that we are collectively facing today.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm again really sorry for my English. That is not really good. I'm sorry. But yeah, let's hope a better world for all the beings, including the animals.
Couldn't agree more. And for you listening, if you enjoyed this conversation, press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because that will show the algorithms that this conversation is important, so more people can become aware, change their behavior, and help to positively influence those around them. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.